with the help from some friends from Cisco, I'm going to be talking about app management with Google Play. And so, first thing, quick introduction. My name's Alan Livingston. I'm a director of product management at Google. And what that means is if you like something about Managed Play and Chrome OS, let me know. And if you don't, I will try to find someone else to pin the blame on. Anyway, let's dive in. So I wanted to start with a not news slide. Just ease us in here, okay? So clearly, personal time in the web is increasing, obviously. You know, we're here at the cloud conference. But I think it's useful to reflect on the difference between our personal lives and our professional lives, to think through that transition, sort of the differences that we see. And so let's start with our personal lives. So, you know, we've come here. Some of us are based locally, and some of us traveled. For those of everyone who traveled, think about the sort of the chain of events that occurred. You booked a flight, or someone booked a flight, probably online. You booked a hotel online. Maybe you had some ride sharing, used a ride sharing application to get around. You know, if you were watching something, maybe watching Netflix or some other kind of on-demand service, things like that. So every part of that chain is new. None of those things were around really, you know, to a large degree even 10 years ago. So all that's changed and all that's matured. It's mundane, it's day to day. And we're seeing the same transition in a professional context, right? You've got the cloud worker. And cloud workers are able to take advantage of all of the many benefits that we see from the cloud. They're more agile, they can collaborate better, they can work from anywhere, things like that. However, there are challenges in this. And one of the ones is that the tools are lagging. Particularly when you look at vertical tools in specific industries, you've still got situations where people are running older tools. And if you think about that, that doesn't happen in your personal lives. You don't have to boot up an old app from 14 years ago to, book a hotel, right? You can do that online. You can do that with your phone. You can do it from anywhere. But yet people are working, so that's your personal time when the time's actually cheaper. And then when you're on the clock, you're using these old tools that are holding you back. And the transition is occurring, but it's taking time. So we still have that kind of environment where we've got workers that are, some workers are fully cloud, you've got some workers are not cloud at all, and you've got a lot of just kind of workers in between. So that's different, obviously, in the professional context. Now, the positive part that we see is web usage, right? So web usage in the enterprise is an all-time high. It changes every year. It's growing almost in an unconstrained way. But one of the challenges behind that is a associated loss of control. And when you think as an IT person, we're used to be able to have clean management of your tool set. People are on-premise, they're doing what they're doing, you've got a network boundary, and people are using applications that you've sanctioned. And what you've got users going around that. The numbers vary. Here we've got one study showing that workers are using on average 22 cloud-based applications on 3 different devices to do your job. And when you think about that, how many of those are managed? How many of those have been assessed for security? How many of them meet the requirements, both regulatory and operational, that the company has? Right? And so, probably not all of them. I think that's a pretty fair statement. And so how do we deal with that? What is, how does all this fit together? And so when you think about it, the way we think of the problem is it's sort of a 3-part problem, okay? So the first part of the problem is you've got to have the applications themselves, right? So let's forget about managing them, securing them. They've got to exist, okay? And so we talked about that. You've got, the web and mobile taking off, and you've got the migration of these more sort of legacy applications to the right platforms, to a sort of a forward future platform, a mobile platform or a web. So then once you've got that, you need the tools to manage what your users and the workers see so that they can find the right tools. They don't go shopping for their own tools. So you need a way to curate, your store, your distribution of these applications. You don't want them just going to google.com, typing in a search, and just using whatever they find. And then the last part right, and we've talked about this throughout this conference, is the central role of security in the enterprise and at work. And so you've got to have all of these three things have really got to come together for all this to work out. And so, quick show of hands, how many people here have attended any other Chrome Enterprise talks? Okay, cool. So kind of a mix. And so for the people that have, for people that haven't, I encourage you to attend some later. We got some coming up. For the people that have, some of this will be a bit of a rehash, but I'll try to focus it in on the application story. And so, if you think about all of the pieces, our vision for Chrome Enterprise is to address all those problems that I just talked about, to ensure that the right applications exist for users, to ensure that they can find the right applications, that the IT staff can manage those, to make sure that we've got the efficiency gains that the cloud and mobile can really give, and to make sure this all works for workers, to make sure that they've got the right hardware that really works for them. I see a lot of Chromebooks here as I look out, and one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years has been we've really brought them up market to a lot more price points that are a lot better for the enterprise. And so the key thing here that I want to focus in is Chromebooks and the real sea change that's occurring. And so when you think about where Chromebooks were a few years ago, they were niche devices. They were great for the web, and that was a relatively narrow use case, right? They worked great in schools, and we've seen fundamental growth where you had a real tight product market fit, you had relatively low cost devices, worked great for the web, nice management, you're done. Now, when we think about them in the enterprise and the consumer world, they were more niche. And they were held back by a few things. The hardware, as I talked about, you've got to hit all the price points to participate. And if you've only got one price point, that's not going to work. And so we've added a diversity of hardware and are adding a lot more. The other piece was the web itself needed to mature. And the web in the last couple of years, if you've been seeing it, has been amazing in the development that we've seen in the web. And I've been around a long time, and I actually thought that the web had sort of stagnated from a technology point of view. It's become kind of unwieldy, and the tools didn't really do what they needed to do. But when you see the development of progressive web apps and WebAssembly, you can all of a sudden take new workloads to the cloud. So that's helping accelerate the shift to the cloud. But the other key point that we internally understood is that Chromebooks needed to do more than just web. We wanted Chromebooks to become the best place to run applications, period, right? Just the best place to run applications. You look at these form factors, that's what you want to do. You want to run applications. We want these to be the best place. And this is really catching on. And so this was last year. So 17% of notebook sales in the US were Chromebooks, and that excludes EDU, right? So that's enterprise and consumer. And that's a real inflection point for us. And we've been seeing, in various sectors, either double-digit or triple-digit growth in the past 12 months, which is amazing when you think about that. So it's sort of moving out of this niche place to a real mainstream device that provides great security, a great experience, but fundamentally allows you to do more than other computing platforms. And so as I talked about, the idea that we would want to cover all this spectrum here. Obviously, Chromebooks started with the web, and they're great with the web. Now, the web's maturing, as I said, with progressive web apps, WebAssembly, new technologies like that, giving users a much more native application feel. We want to activate the mobile ecosystem with Managed Play, taking all of those Android applications that users love and are familiar with, bringing them to new form factors, and then securing them in a way that works for enterprises. We also provide visualization, virtualization technology for Windows applications and legacy pieces like that. And we've just recently, just at Google I/O a couple months ago, announced the ability to run Linux apps inside Chromebooks. Now, Linux apps from an end user point of view are clearly niche, but we feel like it really augments the story because it brings power user tools for developers and segments like that onto Chromebooks. And so now you've got a story where Chromebooks can do all these things. They can really do more than other platforms can do. And we think that's amazing that you've got that flexibility, but while we still retain the core elements of control, speed, simplicity. So the highlight for us, and that we're talking about today, is activating the Android ecosystem on Chromebooks. That's the real step change when you think about the way that applications are written, the way that people interact with technology, and what a Chromebook can do. And so, we launched it a little over a year ago for consumer devices, but managed play, the ability to put admin management around this to make it really work for an enterprise, was in beta, and now it's coming out of beta. And we think this is going to change the way that enterprise applications on Chromebooks are managed. We're really, really excited about that. And so, why managed play? What does this mean? What is this for? Okay. So, when we thought about how this is going to work for the enterprise, what are we going to do? Well, we knew that there were real core strengths and benefits for Chromebooks, for play, but also for the way that people use technology. We started off talking about consumers and the tremendous change that's happened as people have changed the way that they interact with technology. Well, we wanted to make sure that we were engaging with that we were bringing that to the enterprise. So that's where the familiar piece comes in. Secure. We obviously, we talk about that. It's a core bedrock. They need to be secure in the enterprise, right? This is one of the key challenges that will face all of us in the coming years is how do we continue to make data more secure in the cloud? And how do we continue to keep that at the forefront, really the first thing that you think about? And then enterprise ready. And when you think about enterprise ready, security is a different thing. It needs to be secure. But when you think about enterprise ready, that has to do with applying policies and controls and really curating what your workers and your users are doing. And so we wanted to bring all of that into managed play and then really bring that amazing ecosystem of Android apps to Chromebooks. And so the first thing is familiar. And quick show of hands, who has ever installed an application from Google Play on a mobile phone? Okay. So I think, everybody, and some people have other mobile phones, but the concept's the same. Users interact pretty much universally. They go to an app store, they download applications that do what they want. And that model is much more converged in the mobile space than we ever saw in the desktop space. And it would appear to be the dominant, the new model, the new way of operating. That's what users think. We've seen it time and time again. Users, I need an app. Let's go to like the Play Store, an App Store, somewhere where I can get the apps, where I can search for them and we can find them. And obviously with Android, we have this tremendous reach. We have more than 50 billion app downloads. I believe that is every 6 months. There's 100 billion updates a year. You've got over 2 million apps published, which is amazing. That's a real huge ecosystem. Over 1.2 billion users of the Play Store, right? That's a pretty big footprint. And then key for our developers is over $7 billion to developers in the past year. Because it's become a really interesting channel for monetizing apps. Users are becoming increasingly comfortable paying for apps that provide them value. And obviously, that's going to apply very much to the B2B space. But we see this continuing to grow. And so clearly, the platform's very familiar. Secure. And so we talked about that. Again, that's got to be built in right to the root of everything. And when we think about play, again, we've got this 1.2 billion devices. That's a huge target, right? So we've got to spend a tremendous amount of time making sure that that's secure. And, we've got the stat here, 50 billion apps are verified every day for safety. And so that's app installs. And that's 500,000 applications are analyzed every day, looking for malware, looking for other intrusion elements like that. And you've got 2 billion devices. We actually have even more than are using the Play Store are actually protected. And we think that again, that footprint, that global footprint of security is fundamentally important. And extending that envelope to the enterprise, but doing it in a way that lets people control their experience is key. And so now let's talk about enterprise ready. So I talked about deploying apps. So what you don't want to have is you don't want to have your users come to work and say, I need to do X, and so just search on the internet and find X, and then they go and do it. They whip out their credit card and they do it. That's fundamentally what we don't want to have happen. What we want to have happen is IT is able to control which applications are approved for use, which are paid, which they want people to be using, and then have a store that's curated. So when users want to have something, they just go and they find it in a store. Well, we already have the store infrastructure, and so we allow admins to curate, here are the applications that show up in the Play Store. Here are the ones that people can manage. And it can be defined, right down to a per user level. So you might have certain user groups that can use one kind of application and other user groups that can't. And you can whitelist and blacklist. And so that gives you a tremendous amount of control. You also need to make anything related to security control really easy to do. And so one of the things we wanted to make sure of is that you could just have a very seamless way for admins to manage the applications that are present. So that they can, right, at a single click, they can decide what they're doing, but then if they wanted to override, they want to have more control, you can do it, again, per user level even. So we think that is super important. As I talked about granular control, the thing that we've heard over and over again as Google has really matured as an enterprise company is the need for very granular controls across everything we do. That's part of that has really been maturing as a real strong enterprise vendor. We've seen this over and over again. There are simple settings that kind of work, but you need really advanced controls and policies and settings to really hit all of the enterprise use cases. And so we put that in place with things like APK caching, install reporting on applications to understand kind of what deployments you're seeing, whitelist, blacklist, as I talked about. And the other key piece here is integrating with EMMs. Because, as I talked about, the idea that mobile apps and web are kind of eating the world is really important. So when you look at the way that management is done in mobile, we provide built-in management, but you've got a lot of companies are also deploying third-party EMMs. And so we want to really tightly integrate with them and help them bring their control environment to Chromebooks. And finally, we talk about private applications. And so this is really important as well. So, obviously large companies or large and small companies are going to have applications, homegrown applications. Deploying homegrown applications, managing homegrown applications, it's a lot of work. And, we've obviously talked about how to deploy them on the cloud effectively. But if you want to deploy an app experience onto the device, the Play Store is a great way to do that because it takes all the overhead of hosting the APKs, ensuring you're patching correctly, notifying users of changes. All these things are handled automatically. You've also got access to our cloud test lab. And so you put all that together, and it's a really painless way to deploy private apps within your organization. You can also host APKs themselves, but we're expecting a lot more users to host them via the store and let us host the APKs just because it provides so many benefits, and you're still able to lock things down super privately. Now, when we tie all that together, I think it's important to think about what is the value proposition for the application management framework that I talked about, moving beyond just web. And so for the CIOs, IT admins, I think the top thing is that idea of control. I would say, I think it's probably a narrow case. I think a more realistic or sort of a better explained way would be the idea that you're in control, but you're enabling your workers to really get things done, to help boost the productivity of an organization. You're not acting as a brake, you're actually acting as an accelerator to help people find the right apps and really use them in the right way in all their devices anywhere they go. For the employees, it's stepping into modern times, allowing people to be secure, but get their work done, not going behind anybody's back, but really coming in and using the applications that have been sanctioned in the way that they were intended, and taking advantage of all the amazing advances that we're seeing in enterprise software, but being able to do that from anywhere. And for developers, we see this move as an amazing way to get into the B2B market much more effectively, because you've got deployment taken care of, you've got store management, you've all those elements taken care of for you. And so then it allows you to remove all the overhead and just participate in this area on these really interesting class of devices. And as I said, for EMMs, it allows them to extend their control plane to cover productivity form factor devices as well. All these new amazing form factor Chromebooks that are coming out, whether they be tablets, which is a more traditional place for EMMs to play, or clamshells like I've got up there, or convertibles, detachables as well. So it's a really amazing unifying piece for EMMs. So the question people ask is, so how do Android apps run on a Chromebook? People ask that all the time. I generally say it's magic. People are never satisfied with that answer. So, and yet I try. So the way that this is all set up is we've got Android running inside Chrome OS. It's a container, an Android container, an up-to-date Android container runs inside Chrome OS. In the same way, we've got Linux in there too. You've got all of these containers in there, and they're secured. Now, that allows users to use Android applications. Android applications can just run on a Chromebook. Users have the normal Play Store experience that they want, but we streamline and smooth it out so that users, it looks like it's just an application to users, but it can actually be an Android application or a web application, really depending on what they're doing, but it's all smoothed out in the background for them. And there are, when you think about it, I made it out like magic, there are a few considerations that people need to make when developing for Chromebooks. And specifically, a Chromebook doesn't look like a phone. Like, it's obviously, many of them have keyboards, and they're a lot larger. And the screen aspect ratio is different. So we've been working really closely to update our libraries and work with developers and change our tools so that when you're developing, you're more natively developing for a larger screen. And we're seeing as Chromebooks accelerate and as the growth curve keeps going, developers are more and more interested in not just thinking of like a 5-inch screen when they develop their applications. In the same way that web design went through that responsive design phase where now it's considered normal that you're going to have a web experience that's going to be multi-size, we see that same transition happening on Android devices. And we're working hard to also smooth line the libraries and the tools to make that easier. Again, form factor related, Chromebooks typically are default landscape mode, and a phone is typically default portrait. So when you're developing an application, we're working with developers to really keep that in mind. Also, you've got window management. When in a phone, typically apps are the center of attention. There's nothing else going on. But in a Chromebook, you've got multiple applications running, so you've got multiple windows. And then the final thing that makes Chromebooks better than phones, you've got a keyboard, you've got a pointer, and some of them have styluses. And so we're increasingly shipping a lot more styluses with them. And so we want app developers to really take advantage of those capabilities to develop magical app experiences. And so we're seeing all of that kind of progressing along. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to call up Philip, and then he's also, Bing is going to come up later, from Cisco WebEx, and they're going to talk about their experiences developing for a Chromebook. And the capabilities that the two pieces, both the web and the Android framework, really unlock for them. We were really excited. I thought it was great to have a real premium enterprise company here talking about how these technologies apply in real life and how they're able to develop amazing experiences for users using these tool sets that exist now. And we think that the managed play piece is going to continue to accelerate that trend. So with that, I shall turn it over to Philip. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. So by way of introduction, my name is Philip Kwan. I'm the Cisco WebEx product manager for mobility. And my colleague over there is Yang Bing. He's our superstar Android developer coming in all the way from China. And today, we are thrilled to talk to you about our product's integration experience with Chrome OS and Chromebooks. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Cisco WebEx, we're basically the market leader in collaboration and meetings in the enterprise space. So we cover a lot of verticals, basically from the conference room to medical to education, to training, you name it. We have a product in our portfolio that supports that use case. And the proof of our success is in our numbers. We basically have 5+ billion meeting minutes on a per monthly basis, double-digit year-over-year growth, which basically means that we know what enterprise customers want when it comes to remote collaboration. So this is basically taken directly from our internal roadmaps. It lists our priorities based on what enterprise customers need. So for case in point, one of the most important things about a meeting is a video experience that really makes you feel like you're in the room with the other person. This kind of hidden there also is the audio quality. So we want to make sure that you really feel like you're face-to-face when you're interacting. Now, the reason I bring this slide up isn't to brag about our product, but really to highlight how well our priorities aligned with Google's priorities as we're developing products together. So you'll notice, for example, we want next-level simplicity like our Google counterparts. We want users to feel like everything that they do functionally is seamless, is easy, and easy to understand. But at the same time, in the back end, we want to make sure that security, scale, and reliability are key parts of an enterprise business. Because if you're having meetings, you don't ever want your meetings to go down, even during weekends, even during late nights. That's key to an enterprise level type of product. And then finally, when we're dealing with integrations, we want that to be as seamless as possible. So whether you're using one product, jumping to another, or interacting between them, it's got to be seamless. It's got to be a close partnership, which is why it's been such a great honor to be working with Google on things like Chromebook integration. So why exactly did we choose to integrate with Chromebooks and Chrome OSs with our Android apps? There's a lot of different factors and reasons, but it can basically be boiled down to 3 areas. One is kind of the fairly obvious reason, Chromebook's success in the enterprise market. As they gain traction, as they gain market share, enterprise customers are coming to us and asking, well, what do you have to offer on these Chromebooks that we're deploying? And it's our responsibility to stay in the game, to say, here we are. Here we're going to develop a WebEx Android application on your Chromebook device, and it's going to be great and pleasant to use. The second reason is Chromebook's success in the education space, specifically K-12. So not only does that offer us the opportunity to monetize that by offering a WebEx meeting product on those same devices, but it also gives us an opportunity to gain awareness, or to continue gaining awareness among those young people who are learning more and collaborating more. And as they grow up and graduate and become successful entrepreneurs, we want WebEx to be on top of their minds. So it is in our best interest as education continues to progress to be in the minds of the students. And then finally, it's all about the completion of our vision of what we want to provide to our clients, our users of our clients. So what I mean by this is we basically have 2 strategies when we have users join into a WebEx meeting. One is we want them to get them into the meeting as quickly and as painlessly as possible. And then the other approach is to take them down a lane of getting them into a rich meeting experience. So full functionality, all the bells and whistles. So we do this by offering what you would call a browser-based strategy of joining a WebEx meeting without any plugins, without any downloads, just by opening their browser. But at the same time, for the bells and whistles approach, we want to provide them with a thick downloadable client experience with access to things like annotations. So for the laptops and the desktops, we offer that already with the desktop clients and the browser. And it just makes sense for us to transfer this to the Chromebook environment too, which is why we have the browser-based experience on Chrome browsers, but we also offer now the Android app as the thick client experience. So with that, I will pass it to my colleague Bing to kind of take you through what we're offering. But before I pass it over, I just want to mention if you're interested in learning more about what we're demoing here or other things we're doing, we do have a booth at Moscone South under Cisco. So just look for the collaboration sign in that Cisco area, and you can find out more about what we're demoing. All right? So with that, I'll take it to Bing.
Okay. So thanks, Alan and Philip. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bing from Cisco. Now, I'm really excited to share with you some important web experience on Chromebook in order to help you on the collaboration and productivity, which will speed up your business. So, you will see there are two WebEx apps in Chromebook. One is web app, another is Android app. With the web app, the user can seamlessly start joining WebEx meeting, don't need to install anything. It's pretty useful for users who try to join a meeting in a new device or a WebEx fresh user. On the other side, we provide much more meeting experience in Android app. For example, video first experience, sharing annotation, and multi-window, and so on. Besides, we also were planning to support Google Assistant, WebEx polling, WebEx Training Center breakout session in the next couple of months. So right now, I'm going to demo this function in Android app. Firstly, I'm trying to join one in progress meeting. What you will notice is the video first experience. We want to make sure all mobile users have the same high quality video conference that they know from Cisco. No compromise. So right now I was meeting and turn on the video. I want to know who is on the call, how engaged they are. I just need to scroll. You will see how easy to see other participants' video in the video grid view. So right now, you are getting the experience optimized 2 by 2 for your device. It's pretty clear. Now, one of the next logic thing you want to do while meeting, typically share screen. We also make that even easier too. Just several clicks, you will share screen. No, don't. Wait a moment. Please stop. Yes. Just click the share button. You will share screen. So now I'm sharing my screen. You can see here is the share indicator. And while you are sharing, you might want to do some annotate what you are speaking. So you can also click the annotation button. Now you can annotate what you are speaking. So enjoying the screen share annotation button feature while meeting with others. So I stop the sharing. The last I want to talk about is the multi-window. We believe multi-window will make your work more effective and productivity. So we put it in. So right now you can see I was meeting and view Philip, could you share screen? I was meeting and view the printer's sharing and the printer's video. Then I suddenly want to do something, have to find some doc, take a note. Right now I just switch to the window mode. Then I can find the doc, take a note, or update the document. The printer's video and sharing wouldn't be paused. It's pretty clear. It's pretty simple to switch back and forth. It's pretty useful. So this is we are working hard to give user more productive meeting experience, no matter you join from across the web app and Android app, whatever you join from. It's all needs to the same industry-leading WebEx video meeting experience. Thanks. I'll turn back to Alan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. First thing we wanted to show off is how many people we had. So congratulations on getting all of that to work seamlessly with all the supporting people we had on the demo. Very impressive. And I think that this use case really captures what we're trying to do with Chromebook app management. You've got that full-featured thick client that's using the Android framework, that's working seamlessly, beautifully, providing consistent experiences on an Android device, and then scaling up really effectively, taking full advantage of the larger form factor. You've also got that seamlessly integrating with a web experience that's available everywhere, right? And if you think about the future of the way that enterprise applications are going to be developed and managed, we think it's going to look an awful lot like this.